Okay, so we are back and it is time for the comments. Just give me a second here. I'm a little all over the place. My favorite time of the day. Let's see here. Let's see. 1 second, please, guys. Okay, here we go. So let's answer some of these comments. So, haha, what a story mark says on the Nightwalk vlog, never been the need to the forces of the clown world video. Having an opinion that deviates from the norm is extremely dangerous these days. Even for regular people, if you get canceled, that's pretty much lights out. And yes, I went in depth on that as far as like talking about how, and this is especially true in Hollywood and the circle of famous, popular people and whatnot, because you got to understand, and this has been true. This has been true for quite a while, but you notice how when somebody gets famous, they tend to go to certain platforms, right? Like there was a time when, okay, once you get famous, then you go on various like late night talk shows and whatnot, not to promote yourself. You might have you might do a few skits on Saturday Night Live, right? Nowadays you'll show up on like different big podcasts or something like that, right? And it's like when you're accepted within that circle, you're promoted, you're given opportunities, you're given roles. You might be more likely to collaborate with certain people. You might be more likely to get certain roles in a movie, right? Like you're probably not going to see Kyrie Irving getting a significant role in a Hollywood movie or something like that, because he's on the wrong side of the fence right now. Same thing with like Kanye. And so that's part of the reason why it's important for you to stay in the good graces of what I call, or rather what I got this term from Patrice O'Neal, but you know, I call it the beast, right? And that's the inner circle of Hollywood, of mainstream media and whatnot. You have to be on their good side in order for them to promote you and say good things about you and whatnot. If not, then it's going to be a bit harder for you. And that's why canceling is such an effective thing, because a lot of these celebrities, they're dependent on that acceptance, because that's how they make their money. And I know I mentioned Kai Cenat earlier. You know, he's going through this whole situation where the girl said she was raped at his party by one of his friends and whatnot. And right now he's doing damage control. And you have to understand why that's so important, because if he comes out on the other end of this as the bad guy, he's going to lose opportunities. He's going to lose money. He could get kicked off of Twitch. I doubt that will happen, right? Based on the evidence. But I'm just saying, like, that's why it's so important, because you see what happened with Andrew Tate and some of these other guys where they get deplatformed and whatnot. And a specific reason will be given, but I don't buy that, right? Like the whole Alex Jones situation with his Sandy Hook conspiracies. That wasn't the reason, that was the excuse to deplatform him. They wanted him gone anyway because he was already on. He had opinions that deviated from the norm. But yeah, this is extremely dangerous when you talk for celebrities and people who are trying to become social media influencers and whatnot, because it's the powers that be that control these spaces. You know, they are set on a certain side, and if you go against that, then you're not going to benefit from being in their good graces. Now, even like you said, for regular people, it can be dangerous as well. That's why I tend to hide my power level. Like I remember when Trump had won the election, and you know, I live in the black community, and you know, most black people didn't like Trump, and I wasn't a Trump supporter, but I wasn't hysterical about him winning, because I've learned not to put my faith in politicians anyway. You know, we had 8 years of a black president, and nothing of significance really changed for black people. Like what did he really do for us that like that elevated us to a new level, right? We had all these hopes and dreams surrounding his, right? So I'm already jaded on that whole believing in in politicians that the president is going to change the world and all that. So I was more neutral about it, and I would be in situations where people were talking bad about Trump, and I kind of just had to keep my mouth shut, right? Because I didn't, it wasn't worth it. And I didn't want to put myself out there like that. If I had to, I would. But most of the situations I found myself in, it wasn't worth getting into a argument with some random person that I don't even know. But once you reveal yourself to have certain opinions and whatnot, yeah, even amongst your friends and social circle, it can have an effect on you. So say Tori Blue says, Chad, you're on the same video. Chad, you're too smart. They're gonna come after you. You know, I think about stuff like this sometimes because I know that me and some of my opinions, I know I have quite a few opinions that would potentially get me in trouble with the forces of Clown World. So I anticipate these sort of things. You know, the good thing about being a small or low level content creator is that you don't have to worry about these things. But obviously I would hope to become bigger, but I know that what comes with that is that everything that I say, everything that I do is going to be put under a microscope. And I already know that I've said and done things that would quote unquote get me in trouble with Clown World. But I've accepted it. I've accepted it. It is what it is. You know, I look at Patrice O'Neal as inspiration, so to speak, because when I listened to his interviews before he died, I could tell that his thing, and there are several other people who do it the same way. His thing was, look, I'm gonna say what I want to say. I'm gonna do what I want to do. And if that means that I'm going to have to operate on a smaller scale, so be it, right? And that's pretty much what I've accepted. What you have to understand is that even though there's this whole thing with canceling people and people having a target on their back and being attacked and shamed and having to deal with different accusations and whatnot, there's still a place for you to express yourself. There's still a way. Like, you see that despite what's happened to people like Alex Jones, Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, Stephen Molyneux, you know, these guys, they still find a way to keep moving forward, right? The true fans and supporters of their content are going to always have their back. And even if you're not able to become as big as you possibly could because of your opinions, I think you can still find a way to do enough, right? To where you can live the sort of life that you want and be free. And sometimes that's all you need. A lot of times what gets people caught up and makes these celebrities silence themselves and not openly express themselves is that they know that if they say or do certain things, they're going to lose their job and they're going to lose certain opportunities, and they don't want to do that. And again, it's understandable, but I don't worry about it too much because I think that regardless of that, there's value. Well, one, it's a principle thing, right? I got to keep it 100. I got to stay true to who I am, even if that means people not liking me, right? But the other thing too is, I just believe that when you do that, other people who are real like you, other people who see what you see, they back you up. They support you. That's what I'm seeing too alongside all of this Clown World nonsense. And even if that means that, again, I'll get shamed or attacked or whatever, I'll take that because I know that there's a place for me in the world as someone who's real and true to himself and can see through a lot of the bullshit that's going on in our society. So Pumpkin says on the same video, I like your music, I like your reviews, but I also really enjoy videos like this because these thoughts are so deep and really give you something to think about for the next few hours. Yeah, I'm not just some, look man, I don't just pee in bottles. But seriously though, I recognize that. And I'm glad you recognize that too. But I have so much more value outside of just making catchy music and talking about anime and how crazy modern women are and shit like that. And that's why, moving forward, I want to dive more into different subjects and topics. Because for me, as far as my goals for being a content creator and this YouTube channel and wherever I may be on the internet, of course I want to entertain you guys, but I also want to be someone who provides valuable information and insight into various aspects of life, the world, politics, science, philosophy, relationships, health, and whatnot, right? But again, that requires me to be honest, and sometimes being honest can get you in trouble. So you gotta play that game kind of carefully. But I appreciate that. William Defoe says on the same video, who remembers the fiasco with the Brett Kavanaugh hearings? It's this exact routine. You should look into the Manafort scandal. It was a bunch of politicians colluding with half the top brass of the U.S. military to get rid of the other half, the top brass that wasn't politically aligned with them. This is their MO. And if they can't get you with accusatory stuff, you get Epstein, aka you get suicided. Quote unquote suicide. Right? Murder by suicide. Oh boy, that's crazy. But yeah, that's this one of the most powerful tools. And I talked about this earlier with Andrew Tate, is these whole sexual assault, rape, whatever type accusations. It's a potent poison. It's like a poisonous arrow in Skyrim with the most potent poison you can make with alchemy. You combine that shit with an ebony bow with the lightning enchantment. It's potent, man. And it doesn't matter if you did it or not. It's just once you get accused, there are so many people that are just gonna blindly believe it, regardless of if there's any reason for them to believe it or not. I mean, you look at the Brett Kavanaugh situation, right? That's a good one, because other than that, what evidence, like what can you say about his character? What evidence do you have about his character that would say, okay, maybe he did it? This came completely out of the blue. And yet he had to go through hell to fight through that. He had to go through hell. And you got to think, man, like this man, I'm sure he had children, you have family, and they're all seeing this. And I'm sure they support him, but then it's a terrible situation to go through. And I think that it's not just about turning the people against you. I think it's also an attempt to mentally break you. Really. And I think about stuff like this, and that's why you guys don't know, like I'm training myself mentally, because I don't know what I might have to deal with in the future. I might not always be some small time content creator, right? I might find myself in the crosshairs of some bullshit. And like that's why I feel what Kai Cenat is going through right now. I feel for that man, because he is going through it right now. He is going through some shit. I hope he gets through it. But man, this shit is serious. It's really crazy, man. I think Kanye though. I think Kanye might be the most resilient out of a lot of the guys that I've seen. Most of his issue, I don't think he cares so much about the public backlash. I think he's legitimately more concerned about the rift between him and his family. But he might be one of the more resilient guys who's going through this right now, because I mean he's just trucking forward, man, like a tank. So Jim Flam says on my 7-day YouTube suspension video, unfortunately, I think the only reason Odyssey and other platforms allow more freedom is because they're a smaller competitor to YouTube. But if the day came that they got on the same level of popularity as YouTube, they'd be subject to the same groups that censor things on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, etc. I'm not saying it's not worth it to re-upload onto other platforms because your content should be out there to enjoy easily, but the way technology and politics are going is very grim, and this is only one aspect of a huge problem. And I completely agree. You know, remember, there was a time on YouTube where you didn't see a lot of these rules and guidelines, right? Like, it was really a time where it was like a wild, wild west sort of social media platform in a way, where you didn't have to worry so much about like copyright strikes. And remember when there weren't ads all over the place and stuff like that. But you know, once YouTube became profitable, significantly profitable, that's when people started, you know, realizing, hey, we gotta, and some of it is fair, right? Like music companies, record labels saying, hey, you can't use our music for your video and you have it monetized, right? At least let us get a cut. Like, it's fair. Don't get me wrong, some of it is actually fair. But these are the sort of issues that are gonna come with running a social media platform as it becomes easier. Because now you gotta worry about things like, oh, copyrighted music in the background. You know, that was something that happened with Twitch streamers as well. You see a lot of people playing Grand Theft Auto with the music turned off, right? Because there's so much copyrighted music in it. But that's just one issue, right? And as it gets bigger, another thing that happens is there are going to be random lawsuits against your platform, right? Or quote unquote random, right? And everybody doesn't want to deal with stuff like that. If you remember, YouTube used to be run by like regular dudes, like I think 2 regular guys at some point. Then they sold it for millions. And that's how it got into the hands of Google. Google pretty much absorbed that shit like Majin Buu and became more powerful. But it used to be run by, I think, like just 2 pretty much regular guys. But as it got bigger, they were like, you know what? Instead of running this shit, let's just get the money and give it up. And kind of similar with 4chan in a way, except 4chan didn't get absorbed by Google. It got Moot passed it over to the that Asian fella. But as social media platforms get bigger, it becomes more of a headache to run. And the people who are running it, they have a tendency to just want to cash out and move on. So Blue says on my 7-day YouTube suspension, hey, my guess is that the episode that got taken down was OCM22. Exactly. Have you uploaded that podcast anywhere else? If not, it's probably a good idea to re-upload all of your YouTube content to a free platform. I did not. That episode is gone forever. The episode is gone forever. I think that was the episode that I posted right after Friender had died. And you're exactly right. So what I'm doing now, the good thing is I have most of my videos I have backed up, so don't be worried. But there are some videos. There were some videos because I have like, you know, I have different hard drives and laptops and shit. I got some stuff over here, some stuff over there. So the early OCM Botcast episodes got lost when one of my hard drives died. So that's why I don't have 22 anymore. So I'm going to download all the episodes and re-upload them somewhere else. So it'll be there, right? But yeah, you're absolutely right, because YouTube, who knows when they might snatch my channel away from me. But like I said, most of the videos are good. I have a whole archive. I have like all from all of my content creation, I have like 90% of it backed up. Now I think the only thing, this is the one thing that would get lost for sure, because I just don't have enough space for it. My video game live streams, I don't keep those backed up because I just don't have enough room to back all of those up. So the backup for that literally is my gaming YouTube channel. I don't know if I should just upload them somewhere else as well, but that's the one. If my YouTube got snatched, right? That's going right. Those live streams. But I do keep the actual like the episode formatted playthroughs and shit like that. But the video game live streams, oh yeah. But I do have to go back and download those older OCM Botcast episodes before, because you just never know, right? Because I have controversial opinions. So 360 No Scope Johnson says on the security protocol for rappers video, why do they do it? Can't they just be happy for each other? I never understood niggas killing niggas. You know, it's different reasons for it. And I think one of the best videos that you could refer to get an understanding of this is the famous Lil Bootsy interview with Vlad TV, where he talked about how the reason why a lot of rappers get killed is because the people around them are hypnotized with hatred. And what he was explaining is that, you know, in the hood, in the projects and whatnot, there are a lot of predators. And someone like a rapper is a very tempting, succulent a meal for the predators of the hoods and the projects and the ghettos. And a lot of us come from areas like that, or we grew up around people from areas like that. And we tend to operate around. It's just one of those things. And again, rappers are a target because they tempt the predators too much, right? And see, one aspect of it is jealousy. You have guys, they see you with the nice cars, they see you with the baddest bitches. You're probably fucking their sisters, the girls they want to fuck, their cousins, right? They see you with the money. People love you. When they turn on the TV, they see you. When they turn on the radio, they hear you. When they get on social media, they see you, they hear you, right? When they going through random TikTok videos, they hear, right? And that builds up, right? That jealousy, like, I'm not him, I'll probably never be him. I'm not talented. All I know how to do is rob people and sell drugs. And I'm not even great at that. And so that's one aspect of it. It's just that jealousy and that envy. They want to take you down a peg. They want to bring you down to their level. I can't be you. I can't be friends with you or nothing. I can't make it into your circle. Let me just kill you. That's all I can do is take from you. All I can do is take your things and take your life. And the other aspect of it too is just that as a rapper, you're also seen as being a walking lick. Because a lot of rappers, they walk around with jewelry, different valuables, they're riding nice cars, they have nice homes. So you're a target for that reason as well, because a lot of these predators, they know, if I go after him, I could get a life-changing amount of money, right? If I rob him, I'm getting 20,000, 40,000, 60,000, right? Either in hard cash, jewelry, his car, break into his home, whatever. Like, you know, you're getting thousands of dollars if you rob a rapper at the right moment. Some rappers just don't move like that, but you know, it depends. But that's part of it too. And you got to think, there are people out here that they rob corner stores. They rob little Arab corner stores for a couple $100. You got guys kicking in doors, stealing PS4s and flat screens, and getting caught because they sell it and trade it, right? Like guys, right? Guys would go to prison over a couple $100 and shit, like for life, trying to steal it, right? So yeah, I think it's a combination of jealousy, hatred, and desperation for a come up. And so rappers are just a great, and I think that, and see, this is another layer that's kind of on the spiritual woo side. But I think also rappers have a tendency to attract a certain energy. And I think a lot of it has to do with the image you put out and the energy of your music. Because you notice how rappers like Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, Logic, Russ, Lil Yachty, like you notice how the rappers who don't rap about street stuff, they tend to be the least likely to get robbed and killed in situations. You notice most of the rappers that get killed either have a street background or they rap about street stuff. Not all the time, but the mass majority of them have a street background. And I think, and again, this is spiritual tinfoil hat, Chad Marco. I think that the energy you put out, in a lot of ways, is the energy you will receive. And a lot of these guys, they put out street, hard, gangster energy, and that's what they attract. A lot of these street guys, these predators, they're not checking for Earl Sweatshirt mixtape, right? Like, if Earl Sweatshirt is pulling up to their city for a show, they probably don't even know. But when Lil Durk show up, everybody know. When Lil Baby show up, everybody know. Right? So, but that's my interpretation of that. So Moonbase Monk Mode says on the Why I Wouldn't Fuck a Trap video, femboy boyfriend, tomboy girlfriend, master race. I've done a few traps. X work thing is true. And by X work, he means working in pornography in one shape or one form or another. Even ones that weren't ended up turning into one later. I got molested on the street once. Actually hot though, LOL. Also, there's usually drugs. Last nut I had on poppers was really good though. Some people do meth though. HIV, always a threat, made me quit while ahead. There is preventive med called PrEP, but that's gay, LOL. As for labeling, yes, I do feel insecure and dislike the potential of being auto-rejected by like 90% of women, but we shouldn't be casting a wide net for them anyway, and Fujoshi girls exist and Japanese symbols. So Moonbase has some experience in the trap game, obviously, but one of the, I was basically listing like several reasons why I wouldn't want to date a trap, right? Despite being a fan of the trap porn genre. And one of the things I talked about was how most of them are involved in some form of like the production of pornography. And for me personally, I know maybe it sounds a bit hypocritical as someone who indulges in pornography, but for someone to be in a relationship with, that's not something that I really want to be an element in our particular relationship. And I don't think that's wrong, right? That's kind of like when girls say they don't want to date a guy in the military or police. That doesn't mean they hate them. It's just that there are certain issues that come with that they don't want to deal with, right? And so that's, to me, I just think that's unattractive, especially if you're someone who's making content with like random people and stuff like that, because I see a lot of people, and this is especially true with like transsexuals and trannies and traps who make amateur porn. Like a lot of the guys they work with are kind of random, really, just random dudes. I'm sure they might like vet them a little bit. But I mean, I've seen some where it's like they got a different dude every video. Like it's really some crazy shit. And that, you know, how you gonna build a serious relationship with somebody like that? I don't know. He says HIV, always a threat, made me quit while ahead. And see, that's another big one too. You know, I know some people don't like some people take this conversation the wrong way. But this is just the facts. This isn't me being mean or nothing like that. You can go to the CDC website and see everything I said is 100% accurate, right? The simple fact is, if you're a man and you're having sex with other men, you are at a greater risk of catching STDs, in particular HIV and certain other ones, than men who only have sex with women. That's just a cold, Hard fact. Now you can take that and say, okay, I won't have sex with men, or you can take that and say, look, I'm gonna be fucking dudes, but I'll protect myself better. That's why they have things like PrEP, right? They have like different, it's different ways to approach dealing with it, right? But for me, it's not even important enough to play that game. I'd rather just stay out of it completely, right? But it's no different than like even just having sex with black women, right? You have an increased chance of catching certain STDs, right? But whenever you call out a specific demographic for facts like that, people tend to take it the wrong way, right? Like when a white guy calls out the black murder rate, right? 13% of the population, but right? People take shit like that the wrong way. But it's the ugly truth more than anything else. And he says, yes, I do feel insecure and just like the potential of being auto rejected by like 90% of women. And see, that's another thing too. A lot of girls, it's kind of funny because girls seem to be the most pro LGBT group in the world. Like right, like all in, right? And a lot of girls tend to be bisexual themselves. But when you actually look into it and you research and look into conversations of girls when they're asked would they date a guy who's bisexual or a guy who has had sex with men in the past, a lot of them don't like that shit. They find it absolutely disgusting. I mean, I couldn't believe some of the things that I read from women, how they described how disgusting and gross they think guys are, in particular bisexual men, right? And look, that's a whole podcast in of itself. I didn't even go in on that, but that's a very interesting phenomenon, right? Because girls have this image of like being, you know how the girls have the gay friend, right? The gay pet friend and shit like that, right? And so you would think, and then a lot of girls being bisexual themselves, you would think that overwhelmingly girls wouldn't have an issue with it, but they actually do. It's a very fascinating phenomenon and conversation, and we'll definitely dive into that later. But me personally, I don't worry about shit like that because I don't worry about girls liking me anyway. Right? So that's why that doesn't really bother me. I'm sure a lot of girls will be turned off by the fact that, I like tranny porn and shit like that. But I don't really care because, again, I'm not invested in being successful with women anyway. So if I find a rare girl who's cool with it, cool. If they all hate me for it, that's cool too. I got plenty of porn. Oh man. So Pineapple Activist says on the security protocol for rappers video, I would have used DoorDash if I was PNB Rock because he got robbed and killed at I think it was like a chicken and waffle place, like some type of I forgot the name of it. It wasn't Waffle House. It was another place. But I forgot the exact name. But yeah, he was out getting some fast food and just, lost his life. But unfortunately, when you're famous, you got to move differently. You something as simple as just going out to eat with family or your girl, that could be the end of you, right? It's that simple. Like you have to move. You have to move very careful when you're famous. You got to be very low key. You got to stay under the radar. If you can afford it, you got to have security. You don't want to be locked in the house all day, obviously. But you got to be extremely careful. And so Dubs, the wizard, you ain't no goddamn wizard, said Takeoff from the Migos got shot by Quavo's bodyguard and killed literally yesterday. These comments are old, by the way, kind of like oldish. He got killed quite a while ago. They were uncle and nephew too. Yeah, Takeoff got killed, and I never put a video out really going in depth talking about that. But I had tweeted, I said, I hate to say it, but if you care about your life, you gotta stay away from black people. you gotta stay away from black people. Now, I'm sure some people would take that the wrong way, Uncle Tom and this and that. But dude, this is the simple fact. This is a simple fact. most of these rappers who are getting killed, they're getting killed while they're surrounded by their own people. You're getting killed while you're surrounded by black people. It's not the white racist cop that's dragging these young men out of the car and lining them up to get shot, right? Like that's the anomaly. The simple fact is, the biggest threat to a black man's life, other than heart disease, is another black man. We have a unique issue of violence amongst ourselves and in our community. And I'm not saying like to literally never be around black people, but I think that you have to read the energy of every place that you're going to. It's just like how recently at the latest Gervonta Davis fight, that arena had a hood. That energy was straight hood. That was not Vegas. That was not no high scale top of the line Vegas arena. No, that whole the energy of that place was straight hood. And guess what? There was a fight that almost broke out between Meek Mill and one of the other boxers that was there because they were arguing over some bullshit, right? And it got so serious, people were running and yelling. They had to stop the fight. They stopped the fight for like 2 minutes while they figured out what was happening because they was afraid that a shootout was going to start, right? And so that's what I mean. Like, you just going to certain places, certain clubs and shit. Like, you don't hear about white clubs. Like, dude, you don't hear about white clubs where they're playing EDM getting shot up randomly, right? You don't go to the white people club and think, oh, I gotta have the shotgun in the trunk and shit like that. But dude, going to a black club is, before you go, you gotta get ready like you about to go to war. You got, oh, I got my knife, I got a handgun, I got a shotgun in the trunk, I got a bulletproof, I got 8, 9, 10 niggas with me to protect me. Like, you can't just go to a black club and relax, right? You got to be on guard. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, we just have a unique issue of violence amongst ourselves. And I think that a lot of rappers, what happens is, despite the fact that they start making more money and they are in position to change their environment, they still hang around too many street guys. You know, I know that the event that Quavo and Takeoff was at was kind of private. It wasn't like just anybody could be around. But you know, there was still a lot of street guys there. Undeniably, there was still a lot of street dudes there. And that's the type of element that you have to separate yourself from. The second you're in position to do that, you have to separate yourself from that type of environment. Because we don't see this sort of thing happening with our artists in other genres. We don't hear about a country singer getting shot and killed every week. Rock stars, metal, we don't hear about that. EDM producers. We don't hear about these types of artists dying like this all the time. It's rappers. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't separate ourselves from the street element. We don't separate ourselves from people who have that street energy in them. And so we end up getting caught up in street bullshit. So Antoine Auro Anderson says on the Unusual Night Shift beat, cutthroat in strange ways, cut through these deranged days, floating like a ghost, a sea of opium days with some concrete eyes that bleed, shine a decayed gaze and bruised feet, night walks in the fourth dimension. I forgot to hit the read more, but he was dropping bars on that dope Unusual Night Shift beat. And on the same video, Front Porch says, this is so dope, man. And Blue says, I know that was a fantastic beat. I outdid myself. I know. But on the Nightwalk vlog, episode 25, I'm glad I never became a stoner. BT says, had many pothead friends in high school, but never got into it personally. Gives you mood swings and makes your brain slow in the long term. Seeing some people bad in the cycle of smoking nonstop, not worth it to me. Never wanted to be a slave to a plant like that. Even before, bro, you're a slave to other things you like, her. And then Hillbreaker says, facts. What I was talking about in the video was how I noticed that quite a few of my friends got caught in that cycle of just smoking way too much weed. And the worst thing that I noticed was just how far too often the priority became getting up money to buy weed, buying weed, smoking weed, and doing it again. That was the issue. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of these guys, they would smoke and still handle business, like, working a job or running errands, doing chores, like, just smoke before you clean the car or smoke before you go out and pay, right? I'm not saying like they would just smoke and melt into the car, but when you do that every day of every year, it does stifle your potential. It does stifle your creativity. And I just noticed that with a lot of the guys that I came up with before we started smoking weed, it just seemed like we were a lot more creative. It seemed like we did, or you clean the car or smoke before you go out and pay, right? I'm not saying like they would just smoke and melt into the car, but when you do that every day of every year, it does stifle your potential. It does stifle your creativity. And I just noticed that with a lot of the guys that I came up with before we started smoking weed, it just seemed like we were a lot more creative. It seemed like we did a greater variety of activities because if we were bored, we wanted to find something to do. And the issue became that with weed was always something to do. So I think it killed our creativity as far as finding interesting things to do, right? Because we would spend an hour or so just trying to get weed and rolling up and all of that, and then we got to go off into a car and hot box. That's 20-30 minutes. Then you got to go and sit down and right, and just being high as hell and trying to figure out what you want to do, but you can't really focus. And when you're doing that every day, it really adds up. And not only that, the money aspect of it, because if you smoke like $10 a weed a day, that's $70 a week. That's $140 every 2 weeks, right? That's let me see, that adds up. And a lot of us, we don't have it like that. I mean, it's cool if you got money and you're like a Wiz Khalifa type that can just smoke and grind it all day, but most guys are not built like that. I think for a lot of guys that I know, I think that it really does more harm than good. Not saying that they have to quit, but I think that a lot of the people I know will benefit from cutting back. So Outlaw Otaku says on the same video, weed is so bad for you in 2022, it isn't even funny. This ain't the stuff grown in some dingy basement from the 70s. The weed of today is bred and cultivated to be as potent as possible. You are practically playing Russian roulette if you get schizophrenia or psychosis every time you smoke, not to mention absolutely obliterating your brain cells. It's not coincidence that mental health worldwide has gone straight off the cliff ever since this stuff became legal. And it's definitely gotten a lot stronger. I've heard so many people say that. My mom even said it, like the weed is much stronger. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the technology of growing it and cultivating it has advanced to where, they can do specific things to add more THC content and things like that. I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard that part of the reason why marijuana is a lot more potent is not just because the THC content is higher, but they've also significantly reduced the CBD content in marijuana. And apparently CBD is what balances out the THC, right? That's why I switched to smoking CBD, because it was more relaxing than anxiety producing. So that could be one reason why the weed is a lot stronger. And another thing is this: within marijuana culture, there really isn't any sort of rules or understanding about the need for moderation. You know, when it comes to alcohol, despite all the negatives associated with that vice, at least there's an understanding that you should drink responsibly and whatnot, right? Like you see like alcohol commercials promoting different beers and wines or whatever they say. They always say drink responsibly, things like that, you know. People know, know your limit, right? Don't get blackout drunk. Women are taught not to get drunk in uncomfortable situations, right? There's an understanding that you need to practice moderation and understanding what your limits are. With marijuana, that just doesn't exist. There is no limit. With marijuana, it's cool to be able to smoke more weed than the next guy. Like, that's part of the culture. Like, when you start smoking, that's considered tapping out, right? Like, you're weak. Like, you can't hang. You can't smoke with a real nigga. Right? That's part of the culture. So there isn't an understanding and appreciation for moderation when it comes to marijuana consumption, when it comes to smoking weed. And I'm not the most well informed on the connection between marijuana smoking and schizophrenia and psychosis, but I've heard plenty of stories about that. I've heard plenty of stories of people saying that they had a mental break, or they had a moment of psychosis after smoking a lot of weed or whatever. And I've also heard stories of people saying they developed schizophrenia alongside smoking weed. So you hear that. And I've had enough like bad highs, like bad trips where I had a lot of anxiety and paranoia. And I can see why stuff like that could fuck you up mentally. Now, thankfully, after every bad trip, I recovered completely. But keep in mind, I was never a heavy smoker anyway. You got guys out there smoking blunt after blunt after blunt, 7, 8, 9, 10 blunts a day. I barely smoke 1 blunt a day and still could barely handle that, right? So you can only imagine, when people go really hard with it, it could probably cause some sort of mental damage or damage to the mind that they're unaware of. So Dubs the Wizard says on the same video, I started smoking about 4 months ago for the first time since I was 16, and now I just smoked 17 grams in 2 days. See, this is the guy who's gonna this is how you develop schizophrenia. I mainly smoke backwoods, and I love to cram in as much as I can without damaging the leaf. I hate backwoods. Backwoods are just way too harsh. It seems like backwoods overwhelm the marijuana. Like, I taste more backwoods than weed, but I digress. But regardless, my intake is kind of ridiculous, and it means the quality of the weed I smoke can't be the best. Every time since I get good weed, I'll smoke it up in a day. Normally I get 3 ounces of shake for $40 in Oklahoma from a legal weed store. My cousin is currently showing me how to grow marijuana indoors, and I'll purchase $350 grow tent with a $250 hydroponic system. I plan on using this setup to grow some Melf Ido flowers. Yeah, I mean, look, man, if you can handle it, that's cool. Just make sure everything you're doing is legal, right? I know some places have dispensaries, but they can be kind of iffy on like if you're growing it yourself. So make sure that you're on the right side of the law with that. I don't want to see you getting in trouble. Like, oh, they found Dubs with fucking bales of marijuana in his house. I don't want to see you go down some dumb shit. But that was the comments, and that was the episodes.